guys that are coming in late get to miss the most important speaker, right, or the least important speaker, whichever you want to think about it. I really appreciate Tony reaching out. Getting a chance to speak here is an awesome time. Obviously, I think we've all been in Hog Football Chat now for a long time and just seen the value that adds. Twitter doesn't always add all the value you want it to, but I think the connections with offensive line coaches from around the country has really been a huge value add. So like he said, my name is Joel Nellis, the offensive line coach at Brookfield Central, co-offensive line coach, head coach, and then co-owner of Trench Training. So this is kind of my wife. My wife, I talked the other day. She knows I was doing this. She didn't know what I was going to talk about. She's like, so are you preparing and like reading off a card, or are you going to read everything off the screen? Right? That's when you know, like, well, maybe you should have told me this earlier. But I'm not a paid speaker, right? Even though I'm a teacher, so I write all my notes. My PowerPoint for my team stuff is always the same. So chances are you can get it from up here. I hope it's not just like the speech that could have been an email. So if you need this afterwards, let me know. So here are kind of things that I'm going to talk about on the left. I guess for me, I'd say this to the entire clinic, is use the shopping cart approach. And I heard this at a conference one time. So what's the shopping cart approach? So, well, if you go to the store and you have ketchup on your list and you grab ketchup, right, that's great. But you don't walk by the mustard and you're like, goddamn mustard. Like, how's that mustard on my list, right? So you're going to hear things from guys that you may or may not agree with. It doesn't matter. Get what you came here to get. Okay? Hopefully you can pay attention to the tension, right? That's a good quote from Andy Stanley, right? What are the things that maybe I know I need to do, but I haven't made that decision yet, right? And is it okay to cross that barrier and do something that I haven't done before? So I guess to me, it's identifying the limiting beliefs that might be preventing you, your players, or your program from greater success. And that's really kind of what my talk is about today. I was stuck on certain things, and I didn't want to get out of it, but when I did, we had a better success. Hopefully I can give you the courage to make the changes despite the way others, Twitter, and former coaches may think about you, and then ultimately seek results-oriented systems and solutions. Okay? So this is a little bit about me. This is my family. Adric is 12, Annika's 10, Andon's 8. That's my wife Jenny. She's a teacher. She also played college basketball at UWM. Those are my parents, Bob and Mary. I always say I have the most supportive parents in the world. I joke with my kids all the time, like if I was selling drugs, like my dad be on the other corner, like taking pictures, like, hey, I'm so proud of you. They love it. They were never athletes growing up. The biggest thing they did for me was stay out of my coach's way. They always allowed me to be coached, despite how brash or how interesting of a person or what background they came for. They always did a huge job for me. My wife relocated 2 weeks before the school year a couple years ago, because in Brookfield you can't go to school. There's no open enrollment, so you have to live there. So our family, really, for me to be the head coach, had to pick up and move to Brookfield, and they support us all the way. We're Lancers through and through. My wife teaches at the school my kids go to. They'll all be Brookfield Central Lancers, hopefully, if I can figure this football thing out, head coaching thing. So here's some of my success as a coach. I started in 2006, 2007. I was a walk-on at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Came there, first year went Division II runners-up, lost to Franklin in the state championship game. Took a couple years off, which I'll talk about. Came back when Jed Kennedy was named the head coach at Brookfield Central. Had some decent success, again, back-to-back state runners-up. And then 2019, took over as head coach when he left for Alabama. Again, record not there, won the conference championship my first year. I think the one on the bottom, one of 37 teams to complete full 9-game schedule in 2020 was a hell of an accomplishment, if nothing else. We got through an entire year, and that was hell on wheels, but I think we're all better off. I know it can't be, I like to think it can't be harder than that for that year. So I really think football, is Ted Lasso, right? The guy said football is life, right? This is a lot of, I do everything around football, right? And I think there's part of me that's an identity I'll talk about. I am stuff outside of football. Fortunate enough to write a book about the walk-on program. I have a bunch to give away today. For me, as a walk-on, I never really saw the success on the field, earned a scholarship my last 2 years, but as a way to give back to the program, to talk about such the elite history of the walk-on program. I've been part of USA Football Podcast. I did some stuff with Keith Grabowski, talking about coaches and living their lives outside of coaching and being more than just a coach. Youth football. When I was growing up, played youth football for the Westside Spartans, right? And then when I was in high school, I actually went back and coached every Saturday morning. So I just wanted to be involved with football. My coach on the left side, Kurt Jurowitz, actually stood up in my wedding. So the power that football has had on me has been tremendous. I went to Madison Memorial High School. I was so good at quarterback. I played quarterback almost my entire life, but I was so good that 3 games into my senior year, They moved me to tight end, all right, and thank God for that, because otherwise I probably would not be able to continue my career. I've worked for the Jeff Trickey Camp, done some of their social media stuff. We host the Trickey Camp at Brookfield Central, done some different blogging and things for them. I love it. I love what Jeff does. When Randy Wright was a co-owner, he was a great guy as well. I worked as Brian Hahn was in this one, right? The greatest football camp that ever was, the Jim Leonard football camp in Tony, Wisconsin. 1 year it was Jim Leonard, Danny Woodhead, Jabron Hamden, who played quarterback in the NFL, Chris Maragos, myself. I think Luke Swan was there. So it was like a $70 camp in Tony, Wisconsin that featured 4 current NFL players. Probably the most memorable story from that is Danny Woodhead, who's actually shorter than Jimmy, was running out to camp from the high school, and some dad's like, hey, you got to get going, man. Camp's about to start, right? And this was the starting running back for the New England Patriots at the time, or the third down guy. He thought he was a high school camper trying to get out to camp. So you can just see, and then trench train I'll talk about a little bit. My life revolves around football, and I'm happy about that, because I think the people that I've gotten a chance to meet, the lives that have been impacted as a result, really kind of makes me who I am. All right, these are some of the guys that I lean on, right? I think everyone has to have guys that they kind of lean on for advice or go to. So if anyone can name any of these people, right? I have books, right? What do you do with a lot of books that you haven't sold? You just have them for free to give away. So can anyone name any of these people? Only one, and you get a book. Anyone? What did I say? Tim Polasek. Here you go, Coach. Tony? Eric Tresky. Okay, Tim Polasek is a heck of a guy. He's recruited our area for a long time now. There you go. He's now at Wyoming, been in Iowa, been all over the place. He'll shoot you straight. That's one thing about Tim. He'll never lie to you. Coach Tresky is a hell of a man. Probably the nicest guy, nice human being you'll ever meet. He's the head coach at Wisconsin Lutheran College. He'll ask me advice, which I don't think I even deserve the right to do, but we have a great relationship. Who else? No one else knows anyone else on that list? All right. I've already got the book with Sean Lewis. Okay, we'll give you one here. You can give it to someone else. All right, Sean Lewis is the head coach at Kent State. At the time he got the job as the youngest head coach, he was one of my roommates in college. He's got a lot of wisdom for a young guy. We call him Abraham Lincoln because he has a bald head under that, and he's 6'5". He's going to be one of those next guys up in terms of a major college program. Coach Ruff, Jake Ruff was my co-offensive line coach. He stepped away to be with family. Jim Leonard, fortunate enough to have him as my college roommate my freshman year. I wanted to live in the dorms, wanted to do all the walk-on stuff, and I just happened to get this other small little walk-on kid from Flambeau High School. So he and I are good friends. He stood up at my wedding, I and his. We still stay in contact, even though sometimes he doesn't return my calls, which is okay. And then the fiery human being on the right is Jed Kennedy, currently the head coach at Dothan High School in Alabama. Learned a lot from him, and he's someone that's always a great resource for me. So again, I encourage you guys to have a web of people that you can connect with, because I think it's going to be valuable for you to not just get stuck in who you are, as a coach, and just get outside your own head. So this is the Dunning-Kruger effect. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this before. And I'm sure all of us have been there. Right, when we start out our coaching career, right, I know everything about this. When I got out, you couldn't tell me one thing that was new or different, because I knew everything. I played for Coach Huber at Wisconsin, right? He spent more time in the film room than I was been alive. He coached all these All-Americans, and I learned from him, so therefore I knew everything. And then, right, you get into it, and you start to talk with other coaches who have other ideas, and you start to realize it's more complicated than you thought. Right? And then someone else comes along and you realize you know next to nothing. You go to clinics and you're like, oh man. And the best thing for me was talking to Jimmy as he was going through his time in the NFL, and you hear like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like, how does the NFL guys keep it so simple? And us at high school, we can't find a simple way to communicate how to take a step on a down block. So then, right, as it starts to go, it starts to make more sense. And then hopefully, again, I have a long way to go. I'm not near, I'm slowly swinging on the up curve. And hopefully for you guys, there's some of you that are in different parts of this that I can just provide, some insights as to what, this all looks like in terms of progressing down that curve. So it's okay to walk away, right? My first step was, in 2007, I worked for a head coach that I didn't like very much. He didn't treat kids the right way. We were starting a family. But at that point in my life, I'd only done football. I'd done football from the time I was 25, so the time I was 9 when I started, through 25. I'd either coached or played every single year. And I didn't know if I had the courage to walk away, right? And so again, Who will coach these guys when I'm gone, right? And all of you know, you've all been around, that there's someone else that'll take your job, right? Does it mean that I'm living forever? Does it mean that I'm going to walk away and I'm never going to come back, right? And then how will I survive without it, okay? And what I learned through the process was, one, August is a great month, right? You should try it when you get the time, okay? It's a phenomenal month of the year. You'll like it. I survived without it and maintained a strong sense of self and purpose, meaning I survived without football, right? And I was okay. Now, I did things to help myself out. I worked at Jim Leonard camp. I did some lessons. I stayed involved. I would kind of go to games, but not really. But it really did improve my perspective, because I think for all of our athletes, right, especially at high school football, 90% of them are going to be done with football when high school ends. Well, Coach, I may not, what am I going to do next? It's okay. You're going to be fine. Take the lessons that you learned in football and apply them to something else outside of life. And I think that's a huge thing for guys to, especially for college coaches in the room, that's a whole nother commitment. A lot of guys here at D3, they've done this for free forever. They've committed so much time and effort, and the NFL is not going to be a possibility for them. Coach, am I going to be okay without it? You will, right? You will. Here are the guys that have done it, right? Connecting with alumni. Hey, this is how I made the transition. My buddy Owen Daniels, again, also my college roommate, fortunate enough to have that, he was talking and he was getting out and retiring, and one of the guys said to him, Dave Anderson, who was a teammate with him in Houston, said, Owen, just so you know, there's nothing else you're going to find that's going to come close to football. He's like, you need to be prepared for that. And I think some of our players, whether at the high school or college level, need to have that talk to them about, so that they can make that transition easier, because it is a hard thing to leave. Okay? So again, if it's time to take a break and you need to, right, I'm just letting you know it can be done. You come out the other side. All right, so then, right, I'd been a spread offense, just like a pro-style system. I played at the University of Wisconsin, 12 personnel, 21 personnel, all that good stuff. Then Jed came and took over, and we were going to run the single wing, okay? Tony's laughing in the back, as well he should. All right, it's a cult, right? There are secret meetings. It's really fun if you go. There's not like cult systems for, the Glazers like a cult system for pro style, right? But like single wing, you got to get invited to like the conclave or the colloquium or whatever the hell they call it, okay? And it's crazy. So I'm like, all right, what are we going to do about throwing it? Because I went to my first single wing clinic, and this guy, oh man, coach in Iowa, Bob Howard. If you ever had a chance to have Bob Howard speak, it is an amazing experience. He kept talking about the spinner back and the spinner back and the spinner back, and it took me the whole time to realize that was the quarterback. Right, that was the guy that spun in the system. And I'm like, man, okay, we're going to throw this thing ever? Because that's what I like. How can I learn this? I only know one system, right? And this comes now just going down the curve, right? It gets really tricky. Okay? And then we're going to be in balanced stances, right? Like we're not going to have my inside foot up, my outside foot back. Like this is going to be, I'm not sure how I'm going to survive this. Okay? At the high school level, right, I think being different is good. You have to be, I think everyone's doing it, right? We weren't doing it. We played Franklin in 2006. They were running full spread, right? The splits were like a foot from the sideline. And our cornerback still lined up, head up on the guy, believe it or not, because no one ever saw this stuff. They didn't have divider rules for high school. Well, the thing is, to compete, and we're at Brookfield Central now, we don't have, we've had success, but if you see the lines that we have, it has not been because we've had we do not look the best getting off the bus. So what do you have to do? You have to be different. We have to prepare. We saw it in 2017. We played Waukesha West in the semifinal game, and our offensive line coach comes up. He's like, I think we're going to have a good day. I'm like, why is that? Because I just watched their scout team run through our plays, and it looks nothing like what we do. Sounds good. And then when you're better, you'll be better. Okay? Meaning, hey, yeah, you need to do what you got to do to survive, right? Be different. But then when you're better, you're going to have a really good chance to make a run, and that's what we're able to do. Learning is a good thing. Going and learning how to do new things in football is a good thing. The game is constantly evolving, right? It gives you an identity as a program, and I think that can be adopted, meaning you don't have to be married to it. Drew Lashinsky was the best quarterback in the state for 2 years in a row. We threw the ball, but we called ourselves single wing. You can adapt to the people that you have. Julian Bonda, same thing. He was a slot, but he was really a receiver. Okay? You can adapt and adopt whatever you need to based on your personnel. I think it really simplifies the lower level. Hey, you're on 6, 7, and 8. You can be good at power sweep and counter, you're fine. Right? Throw a stab in there and you'll have a home run every once a game, but you'll be fine. And I think for that, it really makes it simple on the offensive lineman. Right? And then creative minds still work in old school football. There are things that I've learned in watching spread stuff, like, hey, can we do this? Can we run power but give sweep? And that was what we had to do against Brookfield East. We incorporated RPOs. right? There's things that you can do to adapt even though you're in, right, the model. It's still weird to line up against an unbalanced front every down of the football game, right? And you get people to do weird things when they do that. The other thing that it helped me do is it helped me identify that I needed to change the system. Okay, so we switched to flexbone last year because I still had that same thing. We do not have a lot of linemen coming up to the program. And my son's a 7th grader, so I get to see all these kids. We don't have a lot of bodies. We need 2-on-1 at the point of attack. We need to read people instead of block them. Okay, it was an offensive line-driven decision. We throw the ball pretty well at 7-on-7, but our quarterback last year got absolutely killed. Okay, and I think you have to make decisions as a program based on what your offensive line, your defensive line can do, because it dictates, right, those are some of your harder numbers to get. Again, lets you see the whole program, and then, again, you can obviously evolve, right? We've connected with a lot of coaches, Friends University, Harding, right? Those guys are taking flexbone stuff and kind of changing how that looks, even in the pistol, right, or full gun. So there's a lot of ways, again, getting into a new system, I think, really helped, right, me sort of evolve as a coach. Well, then Jed comes in and is like, hey, I need to have 2 guys in the room. I'm the offensive line coach. You know, I did take our team to the state championship game, right? Like I was the guy, I coached all 6 positions, right? And your ego gets involved because there's no way that someone else, right? Why do I need anyone else's help? Okay, and then what if we don't get along? How is that going to work, right? I think having a second offensive line coach is the most valuable thing you can do because it is so hard to see 5 positions at one time. Right? So one, it had an extra set of eyes in practice of the game. Right? He was in the box, I was on the field. I got the front side, you got the back side, right? Or we had a side of the ball, whatever it might be, right? There's different leverage points there. Okay, knowledge of the system. He played for it, he coached it with Jed down in Bradford, right? So he was able to come in and he was able to be the eyes and ears for me early on, like I talked about, to help learn the system. And I think Jed obviously did a really good job of bringing in people that he trusts and that knew that were supportive. Some of us, or if you take a head coaching job, and you don't have guys that you already trust, that's a very hard process. I'm fortunate enough to keep all the staff that I had. But again, bringing him in, it's part of that learning process of what you want to have. You can play good cop, bad cop. I was more the good cop. Jake has no filter or just like straight to the point. Like he's going to tell you what he's here to tell you. And I think there's a good balance between the two of us, which again, you can go bad cop, like, was it Good Guys? Right? You can both be who you are. That's fine. But you get to be who you are. And then it spread out the criticism. If you've ever worked for Coach Kennedy or know who he is, no one is spared. Okay? You're a coach, you get yelled at. You're a player, you get yelled at. It doesn't matter. So at least for us, we could balance out the criticism of all the things that we weren't doing right, because we always felt with the talent that we had that we were always going to be the weakest link. So it was kind of nice to have someone else to kind of, and we could also vent to each other about things like, man, I thought we did okay on that one. Yeah, so did I, but here we are. And then what's great about this whole thing is it turned out that we were like-minded, even though we had different ways of approaching things. He's a great friend, and he always has additional wisdom because he had been places I hadn't been. He coached with Coach Labuda when he was in college, right? Having been a part of the Menominee football program and being with Coach is a huge leverage. Being with Coach Kennedy for a number of years before that, right? It provided additional wisdom, and I consider Jake probably one of my best friends. And not many people smile when they're around him, so that was kind of a funny picture that we pulled out this year. Humble pie, right? I had the chance, the guy on top. Anyone know who the guy on top is? Look, who is it? Mike Ermovich. There you go, sir. He's now the head coach at Butler. Anyone know who the guy on the bottom is? Jim Huber. Coach Huber's my offensive line coach. My best friend's dad, or my best friend growing up was Jason Palermo. Jason's dad, John, was a defensive line coach. He moved in when they came with Coach Alvarez from Notre Dame. Jim was the offensive line coach, and really so much of what I believe in comes from what I learned from him being at Wisconsin. But then I came to a Glazier clinic in Chicago and had a chance to hear Coach Ermovich talk. And I always had, this is the way I've done it because I've been at Wisconsin. This is the way I've done it because I've always been at Wisconsin. And I had to realize that he got up and talked about the simple systems they do. It's inside zone, outside zone, I think power. And he talked about, he's like, well, I had a freshman. He's like, maybe you guys are better than me. I don't know. He goes, maybe you guys are better. But I had a freshman guard that had to line up against Darnell Dockett. And I know some of you in this room are going to tell me, well, his split has to be 2 feet. Well, I made it 6 inches because there was no way he was going to get under him on the under. And I'm like, wow, like, are you allowed to do that? Like, I'm not sure that's allowed. Like, can you change the splits to adapt to personnel? And he talked a lot about that. And it was the best moment of the whole clinic was I went up to shake his hand. say I appreciate, like I learned so much. I couldn't tell you the concepts, but just the idea that, man, you can do things differently. And the guy ahead of me that was talking to him was trying to convince him, some high school line coach in Illinois, was trying to convince him that you can really keep the same splits. And he literally says, like, hey, man, he's like, you're right. You just probably know more than me, and tapped him on the shoulder, and I walked up next. Right? And it's like, holy cow. So there's guys that will still fight you, right? Maybe these guys are where they at because they've been adaptable, right? Maybe that's why they're there. Maybe it's not. And again, I think we all battle that. I got to hold the standard, right? But also you got to do what you got to do to put your players in position to win. And that to me was eye-opening. And we had, especially at the high school level, right? We have different type bodies, right? In the flex bone offense, I watch guys run like 160-pound tackles. Well, you got to do something different because you ain't going to base block a whole lot of people 160 pounds. So maybe you can have the success because you're adaptable, right? Personnel dictates decision-making, put kids in the position to win. And that's a hard thing to do because we are all really smart guys. We know a lot of football. We can clinic and board with the best of them, but our kids may not be able to do it, and what do we have to do? And that's part of the reason why we went to the flex bone. We can throw the ball. We killed it in 7-on-7 last summer, right? We were 4-7 in the regular season, okay? So again, we have a lot of, but again, it's because our offensive line couldn't do, if we'd have put them in the spread, right, we'd have been 1-8, okay, maybe. So we have to find ways to be adaptable, right? And there's always going to be critics. I kind of like to say this too. I say this to my kids. If I ask my kids, and if you're around kids these days, they can't make a decision, or they don't want to pick a favorite, they don't want to piss anybody off. If I asked you what your favorite movie was, what would you tell me? Remember the Titans. Okay. Some people don't want to tell me. I say, you know what? Guess what? Your second favorite movie won't be mad. Your second favorite movie is not going to be mad at you for what you chose first. Okay, it's this. Guess what? Your old offensive line coach, your old head coach, the guy that's not there anymore, he won't care because you know what? It doesn't affect him anymore. He really don't know. He's too busy worried about other things. So you got to make the choices that you're going to make, and not everyone's going to like it, right? Tony's going to hate single wing no matter what, right? And we're going to run it because it's what we need, right? And that's okay. And it's okay to disagree. All right, down the ladder. So Coach Machado just got elected to the Hall of Fame, and he was hired and brought on to bring some spread elements to our single wings. And Drew Lashinsky, very talented player, got a talented receiver, got to throw the ball around or what. Well, has anyone seen any Tony Franklin stuff? Right, seen a little bit? Okay, well, Tony Franklin sets with the inside foot on pass pro, right? I don't know, I try to think of an analogy, like hammer with the wrong side of the hammer, shoot free throws backwards. Like, you want to talk about things that were like sacrilegious. Okay? I was like, this can't be done. Like, if this is true, why aren't more people doing this? Okay? And then every guy I talked to Coach Eck, and it's like, yeah, we did a little bit here, but like we never did it from a balanced stance. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like we're never going to be able to figure this out. Well, then I watched all of it, and number one, it gave me a huge insight into pass protections and 5-0 and where the back is going and all this stuff, and it cleared up a lot of the issues that I saw us having, especially with our unbalanced line. Like, how are we going to get guys to turn? Where is it going to come from? Is the tight end staying in, tight end out? And so much of that knowledge of just simply the dynamics of the pass game was cleared up so much from just starting to delve into that. Number two, if you're in high school, I might recommend you take a look at it because it is way easier to teach than teaching a kick slide. So if you've never seen it before, if I'm in a balanced stance, let's say I'm in an unbalanced stance, instead of kicking and sliding, right, I'm going to drop my inside foot and get back square. Now again, some like heads are blown, right? Like, how the hell are you doing this? It worked out really well because in our balanced stances, we didn't tell a kid which hand he could have down is up to him. All we said was, if you're on the right side, I need you to have your right foot slightly back and your left foot slightly forward, right? And then on the other side was the opposite. So we would work on getting straight back and then having them set, guess what? Whether I got here like this or whether I got here like this, I was still in the same position. We had guys, Al Mahar was 6'5", Trevor Smith, or C.J. Haney was 5'7". He broad jumped like 4 feet at the combine. I was like, man, your NCSA recruiting thing ain't gonna matter. You jump 5 feet at the combine. Okay? So again, we had guys that were all different body parts. We could get them on level. Hey, CJ, you may need to take 2 extra kind of shuffles to get back because Al's gonna be there in 3. And it cleared up a lot. And again, if I can get to this position, right, in a good loaded position with my hands ready to fire, I'll be okay. So it changed for me. I actually think we might go back to it this year because we're flexible and we're going to have, right, heels off the ground. Well, I got to come out of that position. It might be a lot easier for us to come out of that position and get square and get settled and ready to go because I can teach from there. So again, you can see that it improved us being on level, staying square, and passing off twists. And again, I think that the Franklin system would tell you that they get all that stuff. Well, now it added a pass nuance and protection nuance to a really heavy run offense. So again, I had to get out of my own way because it took me a lot of time to just get over myself that you could do it this way because that's no way I've ever learned how to do it before. But obviously they've seen success. And no, I am not air raid certified. It's just the graphic that I could come up with. So again, I had some drills, but I don't have time. I was talking to Coach Hahn about this before, okay? Stephen Owen, and that picture troubles me a little bit. I'm a Wisconsin guy, but Stephen actually got me a field pass for the Wisconsin-Minnesota game before the game. Stephen was one of our smartest kids, played in the state championship game with a separated shoulder. Went on to go to Arizona State for video, then kind of came back and wanted to go to Minnesota, so we were able to get him on staff there. But I think I talk so much that I say it all coaches talk like this, and they nod their head, and so the kids nod their head. But you don't know if they really know it or not. So we're going through a drill, and we're talking about, hey, is it box or spill? Like, Steven, what does spill mean? He's like, the guy plays up the field? And I thought I had this moment like, okay, if our smartest guy doesn't know it, then nobody knows it. There is not a single person on this team that has any clue what I've been saying for the last 2 years. So what we decided to do, right, and they've never asked to clarify. Kids don't want to ask questions anymore. Hey, they have a hard time doing it. And I can share this thing with you. So what we did is we created, I don't think I have internet, but maybe it'll still show up, nope, no internet. I'll share, is a football 101. Okay, there's our accountability teams if you guys care. Was a list of things: vertical, width, depth, step, stance, strike, 40 protection, 60 protection, etc. And we explained what it was and then added in video clips to huddle. So we had a whole presentation of football 101 terms that we've been talking about forever, right? Because you can say, hey, get vertical in the pass game and get vertical in the run game, and that means two different things, right? Vertical in the pass game, I need you to get back. Vertical in the run game, I need you to get forward, right? How am I creating width? How am I creating depth? And we just throw out all these terms, and I don't know if the kids know, right? So again, the smartest kid in the room, in your room, doesn't know these things, right? What are you doing to help everybody? We all speak a common language, and that language must be learned, right? Can your kids line up and tell you what a 4, a 6, an 8? Do they know the difference between 7, 8, and 9? Okay, do they know that, right? Do they know why it's a 7 and then a 9? Someone invented it, but we got to talk the same language. I just go with 6I, okay? And then it should help every player play faster. Does it take a lot of work? Yes, it takes a lot of work. You got to create the list, you got to import it, you got to find the clips, etc. But I think to me it's worth it because, again, if I realized in that moment that I just kept talking to the kids and talking at them and I never checked to see if they knew what I was talking about. And that's, again, a hard thing to get over when you just think you're the smartest guy in the room. Okay? And again, all these things are really humbling experiences. All right, and then the last thing is I got involved in a group called Trench Training, right? And Trench Training was, so Steve Stark and Glenn Derby. Steve played the 93 Rose Bowl team. Glenn Derby played in the NFL for a number of years. They had seen their kids kind of growing up in the specialty world and some of the basketball stuff. I'm like, hey, there's got to be a way to help linemen because linemen are some of the bigger, right? I'd say they've always been told like, hey, don't hurt anybody because you're the bigger kid, right? Like, how do you mold those kids? So their mentality was like, we want to teach kids to live and play big. And that was something that I could get behind. They also weren't focused on, we never do one-on-one pass rush. We don't do a lot of hype. Like, I didn't list any of the kids that like we've been a part of because ultimately I think in this day and age, everyone wants to claim a kid, right? I'm the reason that this kid went to this level, and we're not. Right? We are part of the solution. We are part of it, but we're not the whole thing because the coaches they play for are really good coaches. And our goal is to just help them. They are kids that are motivated and excited to do offense and defensive line stuff, whether it's at the youth level or the high school level, and we just want to be there to support them. And we don't want to take, ultimately, I don't ever want to take too much credit for that because what they do on the field for their high school ultimately dictates whether they get scholarships or not or move on to the next level. Okay, do I have to be about the hype? If you've ever seen the Tricky Camp, we're not about the hype, right? That's not a thing that they're about, so we just did the kind of the same model, right? My first line to all the kids the first day is like, hey, you're here, you're a part of all these different programs. You are never going to go back to your high school coach and tell them, well, Coach Nellis at Trench Training said this. I said, we're going to give you a bunch of tools, but they are the ones that decide that you play or not. So don't throw us under the bus because you're not doing what you're supposed to do, right? And that's our sort of our cover to start. Ultimately, you know, and we, right, Ken runs single or wing T, right? You got wing T, you got this, like that. We all do the same blocks, right? We down block, we reach block, we pass block, right? We base block. Okay, and how we throw them all together is, right, the fun part about it. But ultimately, we all do the same thing. Whether it's a shoulder or a hand, it doesn't matter. Okay, it forced me to be a better technician because I had to start coaching kids to just, what is the core of this block? What is the footwork? Hey, here's the landmark we teach. If your coach tells you something different, do it that way, but here's why we feel this is important. Okay, relationships over rivalries. Last time we had a group of like 7 Marquette kids. Okay, you will not find a coach in the state who dislikes Marquette, and I like Coach Keith. He's a really hell of a guy. But like, I had 7 Marquette kids at my trench training. They were there to get better. I'm there to coach them to get better. I don't care what color shirt they have on. Okay, the kid on the right, the second tallest kid over there, is a kid that left our program to go to CMH as a freshman. As you can see by how tall I is, he's going to be pretty good. Okay, guess what? I coach him just the way I would if he was a part of my program. Okay, and that's sometimes the interesting part about when you do stuff right to get paid for it. Some of those lines just kind of go away. Okay, so relationships over rivalries. It's about the kids. The kids get better. You get to be a part of their success. The relationships I have are the same as the relationship I have with the kids in our own program, and that's a really neat thing to have. It's also okay to make money to offer a valuable service. If you're good at what you do it with the right intentions, right, and you deserve to get paid for it, go for it. Okay, I'm telling you, like, it's okay to make some money on the side, right? None of us in this room get paid enough for what we do, right? It's okay to find a way, provided you're not taking advantage of kids and you're doing things the right way. The other thing in Wisconsin, we play so little. Going, watching, and seeing these other guys in other states. Like I just got my buddy from Florida. They got spring ball. Wisconsin, we have 5 contact days. Then we have 2 helmet-only days, followed by 3 half-pack days, followed by 4 full contact days before the scrimmage, and then we're into game week. Kids don't get enough football, especially offensive linemen or defensive linemen. So it's okay to do more football because we don't get enough of it. Illinois, 25 practices in the summer. Okay, Minnesota has 10. Right? All these other places have so much more football, we don't have enough. So why not give kids a chance to do a little more football? And all these kids this is just a sampling of kids. Again, Brookfield East, New Berlin West, Kewaskum, Kettle Moraine. You know, again, it's fun to have kids from all over because, again, they are the biggest, most awkward people in the room, right? But when they come together, they get to be part of a same style brotherhood, and that's a really cool piece of what we get to do. And hopefully they get better and enjoy along the way. I have to leave about 3 o'clock, but if you're around, you want to talk to me, this is my contact information. Anything you have here, you want the football 101, you want any of that stuff that I've shown here, you want to talk vertical sets, this is the way to get a hold of me. More than happy to talk about ball. All right, something that I love to do. Again, I appreciate Tony allowing me to talk. I know I talk fast. My wife told me not to do that, but we got to get it in a good amount of time so other speakers can talk. So enjoy the clinic. Hope you guys learned something new. All right, if anyone wants copies of the book, I got 2 more. I don't really care. Anyone want to take one? Anyone else? No? All right, there we go. Good. Oh, can't give away a book. That's a problem. Here we go. All right, Coach, we're good.